gradually being made to preserve the habitat they live in. So hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next 20 or 30 years, or in my lifetime, this population could increase from less than 500. Of course, that is where they live in Ethiopia. The next animal I'm going to show you all is a true living dinosaur. It is the Nile Crocodile. Now, the Nile Crocodile is the largest reptile in Africa and the second largest reptile in the world, second only to the saltwater croc. And when I say the largest reptile in Africa, a fully grown male can be 6 meters long, weigh 1/4 of a ton, and has probably the strongest bite force of any animal alive today. And of course, the name crocodile in Africa means lizard of the Nile. Of course, Nile crocodiles are found in the waterways of Africa, and they are the closest thing left today to a genuine dinosaur, because these animals were around long before the dinosaurs, and they've been around virtually unchanged for over 100 million years. And why? Because they are the ultimate killing machines. And one example of that is what they do. Of course, crocodiles are at the Mara River in East Africa on the Masai Mara. Because for them, when they come out of hibernation after the dry season, they wait for an important event where it's massive herds of wildebeest on their never-ending quest for fresh pastures. Of course, the crocodiles will have waited a year for that event, and it is the best feeding opportunity they'll ever have, when the wildebeest either stop to drink in the river, or they must cross the river. And one thing that makes crocodiles so good at hunting is that they have a special sense in their jaws. Running along the jaws and the snout are holes that contain pressure sensors that actually detect changes of pressure in the water and vibrations. So if prey is drinking in the water, or if there's an animal in the water struggling, the crocodiles can pick up the vibrations, and also they can incredibly hold their breath for more than 3 hours. They do that by rationing the oxygen in their blood and slowing their heartbeat from 40 beats per minute to just 3 beats per minute. And then, bang, they leap out the water and grab a hold of the wildebeest, and they drag it into the water. And of course, they either drown it or will death roll it. But crocodiles can't bite off mouthfuls, and their cone-shaped conical teeth are evolved to grip prey rather than tear off meat. But of course, as you can see here, crocodiles don't dine alone. And what they do is they all take turns to hold down a carcass, while one crocodile will take a bite, lock its neck muscles in, and then roll, using the bulk of its body to tear out chunks of meat. In fact, it's called the death roll, and they can consume 1/2 ton of meat in one go. And of course, they eat everything, not just the meat, but also bone, horn, and hoof. And of course, crocodiles have possibly the strongest stomach acid of any animal, so they can digest anything. And of course, crocodiles are also very good mothers. In fact, when a female lays her eggs, usually on a sandy bank, She will guard them with her life and even put her own life on the line to protect them. And of course, another thing about crocodiles is that how they survive the dry season, because when the dry season comes and the rivers and lakes they live in dry up and their prey like wildebeest move on, they have to find a way to escape the furnace. So what they do is they scrape out a hole right here, and then they can lie in the hole and just shut down their bodies and rely on the fat reserves they've built up from their food, and they can just go to sleep for a whole year. And it's believed that that nifty trick helped them outlast the dinosaurs and survive the ice ages. But also, another thing about crocodiles is, like all members of the crocodilian family, they do come out at night. And of course, when you go out looking for crocs at night, what you're looking out for is eye shine. And crocodiles have a reflective layer of cells at the back of their eyes that reflect the light. In crocodiles, it's bright ruby red. And so if you're ever out looking for crocodiles at night, you need to keep an eye out for bright burning red eye shine of crocodiles. But also, you can go diving with crocs, but there is one thing you need to do if you go diving with crocs, is get as far away from the surface as you possibly can, because the surface is what's known as the kill zone. So if you get away from the surface quickly, like down to the bottom or onto the boat, you're in no danger. And of course, crocodiles do occasionally target people, but that is very, very rare. I mean, a lot of the time it's either because they're protecting their young, or when males are defending their territories, or if crocodiles haven't eaten for months and are very, very hungry. But, I mean, it's desperately rare, but you've always got to have that in the back of your mind. And never take crocodiles for granted, because this is their range in Africa. Now, next creature I'm going to show you is one of the most incredible birds of prey I've ever discovered. It is the black eagle. Now, the black eagle is found in the mountains of Africa, and this is a very big, powerful bird. And you can see where they get the name black eagle from. I mean, what's impressive about the black eagle is not just the eyesight, which is 8 times more powerful than ours, but also, as well as beak that's like a butcher's cleaver, and the talons, which I will get to in a minute, but also it's their soaring ability that allows them to soar across their range for hours at a time without even beating their wings, and they do that with thermals, rising currents of warm air. But probably the most incredible thing about black eagles is that the male and the female will work together. Black eagles are the ultimate tag team. While many birds of prey tend to hunt on their own, black eagles, a pair of them, will work together because their favourite prey, dassies, are very, very hard to hunt. So what they do is one will act as a decoy, distracting the dassies, while the other sneaks around from behind and then boom! Of course, dassies do not stand a chance, and of course the eagles nest on a large cliff, a craggy cliff face, where, and of course they usually have just one chick every year, and so the chick to feed, they have to hunt almost every day. Of course, as I mentioned earlier about the talons, they are formidable. The back talon is more like a long, curved kitchen knife of a weapon. I actually held a black eagle on my fist once, and And his handler, Doug, said if I hadn't been wearing a thick leather gauntlet, he could have punched that bat talon right through my hand and out the other side. Of course, when I mentioned about black eagles being working together, I mean a male and a female, because they work together to feed their chick, and one of the places where they live is the Drakensberg Mountains in South Africa. My mum spent a large part of her childhood in Africa, and they used to go to the Drakensberg Mountains all the time. And my grandpa actually remembers watching these birds around the Drakensberg. This is their range. And now, the next animal I'm going to show you is Africa's most feared, but also most dangerous and unpredictable animal. It is the hippo. Now, hippos are the third largest land mammals, and when I say the third largest, a fully grown bull can weigh as much as a London cab. They can also run faster than you, but also they are Africa's most dangerous and unpredictable animal. Of course, they don't eat humans. I mean, they're herbivores, which means they're plant eaters. But however, they don't like it when people are on their patch, and they can be very protective of their young. And of course, those two enormous teeth at the sides of their mouths actually slot in to these two lumps here at the side of their heads. And they serve no purpose at all for feeding. I mean, they're purely for fighting and for defence. And on a male, they can grow to be an enormous size. And of course, hippos, although they are very big and they're very heavy, they can run faster than a human. And these animals are responsible for more human deaths than all the carnivores put together. And well, hippos live in large groups called pods, and these usually consist of females and one dominant male. Of course, quite often, once males reach breeding age, they're driven off from the family groups by the dominant male. And they spend much of the day in the water, submerged, and that's to keep cool and also to escape from the relentless heat of the day. But at night, the hippos will start coming out of the water to feed, and that is actually the most dangerous time to be around them, because hippos will charge at anything that they feel threatened by. I mean, they can outrun you, and they can probably bite you in half. And of course, one thing that people actually don't know about hippos is that their closest living relatives are whales, because I recently watched a documentary called Hippo Watch with Steve Batchel on Demand 5, and he actually proved that hippos are closely related to whales, because hippos spend a lot of time in water, and they are very vocal under the water, and they can communicate with each other and even do some sort of echolocation to build up a 3D mental map of their surroundings. And of course, when I said about male hippos being aggressive to defend their territory, in fact, I'm not even joking when I say that male hippos, when they decide to fight, it is very, very frightening. In fact, first they start with intimidation, like getting up and looking all big and strong and being like, "Don't mess with me." But if that doesn't work, they just start fighting. Of course, those fights can last for hours and can be to the death. forward-pointing tusks can stab right through protective blubber.